right, all right. Welcome, everybody. You are listening to In the Company of Charity podcast. And I'm Sister Liz, and I'm here with my friend, Sister Elizabeth, my co-host.
Hey,
How are
Sister
you?
Liz. I'm doing really well. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, good. We
That's good.
are, we're excited to have this episode where you did an interview with two of our sisters about care of Earth and God's
Yes.
creation. So give us a little bit insight into what we're going to hear.
So I did an interview with Sister Mary Jo Stein and Sister Catherine France. Sister Mary Jo's living in Baltimore. Sister Catherine's in Tuba City, Arizona, and they kind of addressed a challenge to do some action, some impact action around climate issues, environmental issues, and so they took this challenge. It was like a 30-day challenge, but they have extended it, of course, to continue. So it was doing things like decreasing the amount of meat that they ate or using public transportation more often. And so looking at different impact areas of environment like land, water, air, pollution, things like that. And so they took this challenge and really felt like they met it, engaged other people. And so it was pretty cool to talk to them about it. The reason I think it's really good that we're putting this episode out now, because they did this in January, so the episode is a few months old. But you know, the Vatican and the Church has started a Laudato Si platform, an action platform for the next 70 years, I think, right, in celebration of Laudato Si, and to address the issues of caring for Earth and, you know, kind of looking at the cries of the poor and the cries of the earth as being one, right? Because when the earth is not fertile, when the earth cannot produce, then people who live in poverty are usually the ones who suffer the most, right? And so
Exactly.
the Church's concern for people and our environment and for the sacredness of the creation that God has given us, you know, the Church is really calling us to take a look at the ways in which we interact with the earth and with the creation of God. So we're just really encouraging everyone really to check out Laudato Si actionplatform.org, or just type in Laudato Si Action Platform and it'll come right up. There's a ton of information about how to get engaged. Families, individuals, our congregation, you know, the Company of the Daughters of Charity is involved in it, and we're trying to find ways in our local communities to address the issues of climate change, to address the issues of pollution, or, you know, whatever is in our area. So I know in my house in Utica, we have done some work in our gardens to make sure that we can get the best yield out of the land that we have. We've been gardening and farming kind of that land with the refugees in our community. We talked with Sister Sharon Horace, who does some sustainability work, and she's been working on the farm in Evansville, the Seton Farm. And she helped us to look at how to extend our growing period because, you know, for those who are coming from Asian and African countries, the growing period would be very, very long, right? Well, when you're in Utica, New York, it's like 3 months, basically.
That's all you got.
You can grow, you know, you start Memorial Day and you have to end, you know, maybe Halloween. That might be the furthest before you harvested everything by then. So she advised us, you know, and gave us some information about getting a hothouse. And so we actually were able to continue to grow through a bitter winter, and are now eating the cabbage and lettuce that Sister Phyllis nurtured through,
That's amazing.
I mean, below zero temperatures. So it is possible. It is possible to really, you know, address some of these issues and continue to see how we can help the earth and help ourselves grow the food we need and you know, help one another in this. So that's just one thing. I mean, we recycle and we do all those kind of things as well, but that was a big project for us to see how we could use the land we have in order to expand the yield so that it could serve more people in our community. What about you?
Well, our little house, we do some composting. We have our little garden, and we have incorporated more plant-based meals, of course, trying not to eat as much meat as, you know, we typically would. And And I think, our area is a huge challenge because it's so, well, it's hot the majority of the year, but it tends to flood. And so that idea of having native plants, of thinking smartly about city planning and where we have our crops and how to deal with the water issue when it happens. It's like feast or famine here for real. Of it's either way too dry, kind of desert type scenario, or we're getting torrential rains and things are flooding. And of course, that was one of the highlights here in the interview about it does disproportionately affect poor people. When we have floods, that's somebody's home that they've lived in forever, that, and they just can't snap their fingers and build another house kind of thing. And so that poverty compounded with all these other elements can really tank somebody's situation. And so I think the more it connects us to each other as humans on the planet who are struggling, but knowing that God has given us this creation to tend and to care for, it's all connected. And I think that's what really comes out in this episode is realizing that we are all connected and there's something that we can do, even if it seems small.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to address the challenge but then to make the challenge part of your lifestyle, that initially it may feel like something you have to do intentionally. You have to take the goal and make it real. But then once that's done, then it becomes part of your lifestyle. And if we all take on a lifestyle that's more, just kinder to the earth and kinder to each other, then we're moving in the right direction. So check out Laudato Si Action Platform, enroll in the program, get some friends to join you, see if your family is interested, get your neighborhood, check it out. It's a really fun, communal, and can be a life-changing experience, I think, for the church, for each of us, for our communities.
Amen.
We're so happy you're here today with us in the Daughters of Charity. I am here with two of my favorite Daughters of Charity, and they will, of course, tell you I say that to all the Daughters of Charity, but they are two of my favorites anyways. Trust me on that one. So I am here with Sister Catherine, and I guess maybe you guys could introduce yourselves a little bit to us. So Sister Catherine, why don't you get us started?
Okay, my name is Sister Catherine, and currently I'm ministering on the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. And I've been a sister for over 60 years, and I love what I'm doing, and I love the people here.
Hi, I'm Sister Mary Jo, and I'm living in Baltimore, Maryland. And Sister Catherine was my vocation director like 35 years ago when I was thinking about joining the Daughters of Charity. So we've known each other for a long time. And I've been involved in healthcare over the years, over the last 20 years or so. And I'm moved to Baltimore in this last year, and I'm waiting on a nurse practitioner license for the state of Maryland. But in the meantime, I've done a little COVID relief here and there and some environmental justice activities for healthy earth, healthy people aspect, and a little bit of formation because I've done that in the past as well. And I'm glad to be here because this is one of my favorite topics to talk about.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about just some of the things you were saying about kind of earth justice and issues around climate change and issues around the environment. I do want to break in just a little. You are Catherine, Sister Catherine, you were vocation director, is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was vocation director. And of course, everyone knows that our co-host, Sister Liz Schoberg, I was her vocation director. So Yeah, it's always nice to have kind of those little circles around, we don't go very far
Sure.
from one another, right? Real
That's right.
sisters in all of this. So in all of that, let's talk a little bit about what happened in January. You both, and I hear that other sisters as well, agreed to a challenge. And this came from a particular program. And Sister Mary Jo, you're going to tell us a little bit more about that, the specifics of it. So
Yes. The program is called Green Faith, and Green Faith is one word. And it's an organization that is a multi-faith global climate justice community. It was founded in 1992 after the Earth Summit that took place in Rio de Janeiro. And that's where the Earth Charter was developed as a result of that Earth Summit. So this group came together globally with the idea that the pathway to a sustainable future depends on building a culture of reverence and collaboration on the planet. And since more than half of humanity is faith-based, has some sort of faith, they're people of faith, they decided that there's a great potential to make changes towards climate justice and deal with the climate crisis by joining together in this journey of transformation that humanity needs to work towards for sustainability so that we can live in the present and live in the future and provide for the earth for future generations. So they offered this 30-day challenge called Time for Living the Change. And it was just an invitation to people of faith anywhere in the world to begin or add to their sustainable lifestyle practices so that we might change our human behavior and that contributes to global warming. So we were invited by the sisters, one of our sisters on the Daughter of Charity Social Justice Committee heard about it, and she said, how about if the sisters on the Care of Earth Committee get involved in this and see what it's like and see if it might be something we might recommend to the other sisters. So we joined in.
And so this was for the full month of January, is that correct? Or you could have done it any month, or it was specifically for January?
It was set up in the month of January, and they offered opportunities once a week to gather with other people who were in the challenge. So if you were in the challenge in January, that was an opportunity to be with others over Zoom for virtual meetings once a week. But some people joined in the middle of the month, and they were just going to extend it, for 30 days from whenever they started.
Wow, that's great. And so, and the invitation came from the subcommittee for Care of Earth. And so just for our listeners to know, we have a number of committees that deal with social justice issues like hunger and homelessness and immigration issues. And one of them is Care of Earth. And so that's exciting that you were able to do this. Sister Catherine, I was wondering, did you do this on your own? I mean, I guess you were all invited, but everyone who's in this committee doesn't live together. You don't all live in the same state. So did you kind of do this privately, or did you, seek out the sisters that you're living with to be support to you? How did it work for you?
Well, as a member of the Care of Earth Committee, I got the invitation. We were all invited. It was optional to participate, and I just decided I would. But the thing I was thinking about is I'm really kind of serious about these changes, individually as well as church, nation, the whole 9 yards. And so I figured, why just me? So I only live with 2 other sisters, but I invited them to do the same thing, and they just came in and sat through it, and we had a discussion on what we would do for the month, and then we did.
Wow, so that's great. So you involved your whole house.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And Sister Mary Jo, did you involve anyone? Did you know others other than the sisters in the province or the community, or?
Other than the other Daughters of Charity from the Care of Earth Committee, I didn't know anybody else. And I mentioned it kind of in passing to the sisters in my house, but I wasn't sure where it was going to go, or how much engagement it was going to take because didn't know anything about the Green Faith organization prior to this. So I didn't share a lot, but I participated in a number of the weekly gatherings with the others and kind of got to know some of them a little bit, because there were about 50%, there were only about 40 people on a call each week, but about 50% of them were either already affiliated with Green Faith or they were repeat attendees at these weekly meetings. So we had little breakout sessions, and so you got to know a few of them that way.
Yeah, well, it sounds nice. Like there was some sense of community, even if it didn't involve your local community. You had a sense of other people who were doing this with you, because there are these programs where you can kind of do it and you're doing it on your own. You're just following along with a big group of people. So that's kind of cool that that you were engaged with the others who were doing this. So one of the things that you did was you picked an impact area. Is that I looked over some of the materials that came, and the impact area helped you to focus on what you were going to do. So can you tell us, Sister Catherine, which impact area you picked, and maybe one or two of the things that you did to focus on that?
There were actually, I don't actually remember which impact area these belong to, but as we look through what was listed as suggestions, we found that kind of difficult. You see, we live in a desert. So, and it's a reservation. And so some things just don't happen here, where there's this big suggestion, use public transportation. There isn't any. Buy local foods. There isn't any. And, it goes through the list like that. So what we did, because we're a house that already has been practicing a number of these climate change activities for past couple years. So what we did is we just took the one, which was a meatless day each week, and we made it 2 meatless days instead. And I might say that when we were finished, the sisters asked not to go to 3, but they will be perfectly happy to continue it too. And I think that's part of the whole thing. This is not a resolution for a month and then you're free from taking care of the climate. This is a resolution that makes a habit. And then you keep that habit and you take another resolution and make another habit until you have covered quite an area, because we can't just say, okay, I'm recycling cardboard, so I'm doing it. Well, forget that. You really need to see how much you can do. And the more you do yourself, basically, the more you find out you can do, because it kind of sets your mind going. And it was just a wonderful experience.
So not eating meat, how does that, like, what's the impact of not eating meat every night or reducing the amount of meat that we eat?
Well, this could be broadcast, but they have it in all the other things. Cows in particular give out a lot of methane, and like really a lot of methane. You could take many trips and do all sorts of things, and before you would top the amount of methane that the cows are giving out. So if you just reduce just your amount, it looks like nothing. But if a lot of people do that, then it's going to make a difference. And that's only one way to come at the methane problem. And the poor cows, they aren't the sole problem for it, but I think they might be champions on how much they produce.
And also they're not very efficient in terms of food suppliers for us. It takes a lot of grain to feed a cow to bring it to market. And then it takes a lot of space to grow all that grain. It takes a lot of water to grow that grain. So it's better for humans to eat the plant products than to feed them to the cows, because your net result of food in a cow is a lot less than all the grain and all the resources you're putting in to produce that cow's meat for yourself. So efficiency and amount of resources that it takes to bring the meat to your table is another big impact area in terms of reducing meat consumption.
Yeah, there's another one too, and that is there are a lot of people concerned about how the cows are treated because they're not free range. These poor fellas are all ladies are all in almost like factory style. They live their lives, and so there's a cruelty to animals aspect to it. The other thing is the amount of fossil fuel used to get their meat from where it's raised to where it's going. And so there's just a lot of things about meat.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because, you know, as you were saying, you might say, I'm going to recycle, or I'm going to cut back on meat. And you pick up these things as we hear about different environmental issues and ways in which we can help the environment. And so we do them, but we don't really know what's the real impact to this. And Sister Catherine, as you were saying, you don't have public transportation, you don't have local foods there, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that we can do, because we're all living in the world and impacting the environment. So that's really interesting. And Sister Mary Jo, what were some of the things that you focused on?
Well, I have a lot more options living in the city of Baltimore. We have a good public transportation system. We have stores and churches within walking distance. And so transportation was something that I could easily hook into. And so that was part of my focus, because driving a car puts, uses a lot of fossil fuels and produces a lot of pollution. So I tried to limit my car use and walk as much as possible. In nicer weather, I bicycle, which is good for the earth and it's good for me in terms of health. But these January weeks, most of them were very cold, and sometimes there was ice on the ground, and so it wasn't safe for bicycling. But I walked, and I called it like urban hiking, because I like to hike out in the county in the forest. And I thought, well, why don't you just walk places instead of driving a car and count that as your exercise and call it an urban hike. And it was fun to do that because I noticed birds and trees and a creek and things like that I wouldn't have noticed if I was in a car. And I also enjoyed meeting other passersby, other pedestrians on the road. And I also noticed that a lot of them in the cold weather were heading to the bus stop because they had to, not because they were choosing this challenge like I was doing. Like that was their regular life. They use public transportation because that's what's available to them. And they're doing a good job of decreasing their carbon footprint because of necessity rather than choice, because they don't have a car or don't have access to a car.
Yeah, so it's really interesting as you're both talking about this, that you entered into a challenge, something that you were going to do to change your own behavior, to try to make an impact. But both seem to have observed that other people are already living this way, and that they don't have the choice. And yet, I think we recognize that those of us who have the choices should make them, and as you said, again, Sister Catherine, the reservation might not have the same issues that Sister Mary Jo has in the city, but we can all do our part. And it sounds like that's what the real challenge was for both of you. And I would imagine the other sisters who were involved and the others who were in the challenge. So I guess that one of the questions for me was, what do you feel was a success in this month for you? And what was a struggle? Like, was there a time when you thought, this is a really long month and I'm not so sure I'm going to make it? Or were there times when you felt like, this is really something I'm going to continue to do?
Well, we really didn't have much of a struggle because we already hadn't eaten meat on one day, and now we don't eat meat on two. So the only thing was that the sisters felt that they would rather not go to 3 days. And that really had more to do with cooking turns and who likes to cook things other than regular meals, like having or something like that. So that, and I wasn't really worried about that because the sisters that I lived with are perfectly happy to put the right foot forward to do things for to help climate. So the fact that they didn't want to raise it to 3 is not a problem. The fact that they didn't want to become vegetarians isn't really a problem, because there are so many areas. There's plastics, there's all kinds of areas where we can make changes. And I feel it's all very open.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, that it doesn't, I guess that's why I was kind of asking about like what felt like a success, what felt like a struggle. It doesn't all have to feel like struggle, like, oh, I sacrificed this big thing. It's kind of like it's not Lent, right? It was an option to do something good, and it was to create this impact, but also it sounds like it was important to also educate as to what the impact really is. And so whether you go to 3 meatless meals or not, that may or may not happen, but that it brings us to a point where we're saying, well, if we can do this for a month, what can we do the next month, or what could we do the next month? So Sister Mary Jo,
Well,
how
that's
about
right.
you?
One thing that I thought was a success that was beyond just my actions of not using a car very much was the idea of my experience of solidarity and unity with people of a lot of different faiths from all over the world. And it just made me be more aware of how this is something that we can do together, that we have this common humanity, and we all have some sort of faith, and that's what draws us together. And the passion to do something to care for Earth is a part of living out one's faith, the experience of God in nature, and the experience of reverence and respect for the least, because we know that poor people are most affected by climate change. And that came out as integral parts, the caring for the poor, and that awareness of solidarity was common in all the different religious faiths that I had the opportunity to talk with people about. So that sense of solidarity and unity gave me a lot of hope that this is the way people of different faiths can come together with this common cause that's really a global issue that we all need to deal with. So, and I became more aware of an interfaith group in Baltimore, and also what the Maryland Catholic Conference is doing in terms of climate change. And I was really pleased about that. And then it also reminded me that the whole Catholic Church throughout the world is involved in the Laudato Si action platform that is an invitation to all levels. So it was just this reaffirmation that we can do so much in solidarity with other people. And so joining in this green faith effort was just brought that idea to me, and how potentially successful it can be because there's so much momentum already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like it really impacted you as much as you tried to impact the world, impact the sense of sustainability and the environment. And so that's really great. And I guess, my other question is, did it help you to understand maybe more deeply the severity of these issues? That, we can talk about them and do our small piece, but do you feel that you learned the depth, of just how damaging sometimes our behavior can be? Did that come up at all for you, where you really had kind of an aha moment when you thought, wow, this small thing I'm doing can really make an impact?
I think so, because one of the evenings, one of the gatherings, someone texted in from Malawi, and he said, we have no electricity because we've had severe flooding right now, and I'm not able to join in on the call. And someone from Canada responded to him and said, we are with you, praying for you, and we hope you're going to be safe, and we hope you'll be able to join us next week. So we really saw from all around the world how this climate change is impacting all parts of the world. And though, like I said before, people who don't have resources, people who live in poverty are impacted even more. Like they can't compensate, whereas where the developed countries can.
I think, Sister Catherine, speaking about being on the reservation and having more limited resources, seems to me there'd also be a different kind of impact. So I guess I'm just wondering what you learned about this, what you learned more deeply, maybe what you learned about yourself or the environment that you're in, or anything else that you feel like this experience has brought kind of to the forefront for you.
I guess when I thought about this particular question, I was thinking about the whole concept of this whole climate change. It definitely has changed the climate here on the desert. We're to the point where there's a question mark about the water level, and where it is, and how much longer there will be water in our particular part of this desert. We live on water coming from aquifers under the ground and wells tapping those aquifers. And right about now, we have the water levels in the aquifers are very much down, same as they are with the Colorado River and everything else that's around here. And so the cold climate thing is very much impacting the desert. And so I guess the thing that gets me is when they talk about conditions for many of these various topics in climate change, they are severe, and we really are near a tipping point. And I have no idea how to get across to people how important it is that we move now. Take a resolution a month, form a habit, move on. Next month, take another one. Unless the whole country, not just the whole country, the whole world takes seriously taking resolutions and doing things individually, and then advocating with businesses, with churches, with the nations, and then the whole world, so that some things can really be changed, because the tipping point's just about here. And you hear the thing when you hear presentations, what are we leaving to the next generation? And I don't think people are listening to hear that. So that concerns me a lot. It concerns me a lot.
I can see that this one act, eating meat one extra, not eating meat one extra day, taking the bus, walking more, can be very personal, but they do have bigger impact, but they're also a witness to others, right? It's a witness to other people that, one, there is a concern, two, there is something they can do, and three, what they do can make an impact. And those, I think, are really important points that, each of you have done something in this month. You've done it with, maybe 100 or more 100 people across the planet. It sounds like that this group was kind of global, yeah, which is beautiful as well. And yet we're in our own small little space, right? And we can know what's happening in front of us. Like I know one of the suggestions that had come out, and one of the things that the community had sent out was about like using your dryer less often. And we all kind of laughed in our house because we said, well, if we had to put those racks up with all our clothes, as 5 women in our house, we'd have no room. But we could all find a way to use the dryer less, maybe hang up some of our clothes and don't. Now, that seems like a small thing, but as I'm listening to you speak, I realize those little small things compounded and multiplied by more and more people can, in fact, make a difference. And so not to be discouraged when you feel like I'm not really making any impact here, but that you really are. Maybe not be able to see it right in front of me, but to have a sense that not just me, but other people like yourselves and others that you were in this challenge with, and other people beyond, that even those little steps can make a difference. So I guess,
and actually, if you don't mind me interrupting,
yeah, No.
that electricity use, energy use, that when you mentioned the dryer, that was the third impact area that was suggested
Mhm.
by this 30-day challenge. So you're doing the 30-day challenge too, or you're considering it.
Yeah.
Because dryers really have a huge consumption of electricity. So, you know, using what they call a solar dryer, which means a clothesline, a solar power dryer, a clothesline, if you have, you know, access to a clothesline or drying racks, has a huge impact just because an electric dryer uses a lot of energy. And maybe you could take turns different days of the week to use your clothes rack.
Yeah,
Instead
yes,
of
we
like
could.
5 women going for the same day of laundry or something.
Yeah, it has to do with too with our house is a little
Sure.
bit small, but
Right.
again, I think your point is well taken. One of the things I realized in that challenge for myself, because we all just like to get our clothes dry quickly, especially in the winter. You want your clothes coming out nice and warm because you know it just feels good. But then I realized that the dry one, we can't use a clothesline necessarily in the middle of January in Utica because the clothes
Right.
will just freeze and be just as wet as when you put them out there. But that they're also the heaviest clothes that you wear all year because you're in sweatpants and sweatshirts and sweaters and you're wearing your heavier habit and you know all of that. And so trying to find a way to say, okay, well, I just won't dry all of my sweatshirts or all of my sweatpants, my heavier clothes. I'll let those, you know, dry on their own in the house. And but even making those kinds of discernments, again, they sound small. They can feel like they don't have an impact. But I think from listening to both of you, I feel a little better about my little effort. And I know I can take your suggestion now to maybe rotate use of the dryer rack. Might be something, might be the challenge I bring to my house. So I guess that brings me to kind of the last question that I have, and then of course anything that you want to add. But I guess what practice or what action do you think you'll hold on to? Like, will you continue? I know, Sister Mary Jo, you'll continue to walk, and Sister Catherine, it sounds like that your house will continue to at least not eat meat on 2 nights. So you may hold on to those, but are there other challenges you felt impelled to maybe take on? What you might do in the next month? I mean, do you feel like you know what that is yet, or will you take some time to think about how will you challenge yourselves? And then maybe you could let us know how we should consider challenging ourselves as we begin to wrap this up.
Well, I think the plant-based, eating more of a plant-based diet and less meat is something that I want to move into more. And that's something that involves other sisters I live with because we take turns cooking. And so that could be an invitation for them to say, oh yeah, well, maybe we could, you know, find more recipes that use lentils and beans and things like that, as opposed to beef and pork and chicken. So that's something that I'm leaning towards for the next time. And I really agree with what Sister Catherine said about the need to, try something, have it become a habit. You know, they say, you know, if you can do something for a month, it becomes a habit. It, you know, becomes part of your lifestyle. And that makes it easier. And it also goes along with that 12-step, one day at a time principle that we can do anything for one day and then, okay, then the next day, then the next day. And so it was a lot less threatening to say, I'm going to try something for a month, because then you can say, well, either it worked or it didn't. And a lot of times it works, and then you're ready for something else. So I think that idea of trying something for 30 days and then trying something else is a good manner to help lead into this transformation that we all need to do, because we are really at a tipping point, and we also have all this momentum of so many people who are aware. So there's a lot of hope.
Sister Catherine, what do you think you would take on something else? Or?
Well, what as a house, I know that we had a little discussion the other night because there's also a little practice coming out from the province. It was mainly on food this time. And so we had a big discussion because, again, a lot of their suggestions were not doable here. So we intend to hold on to the practices we already have. And I decided to make a list of them, and it would be boring if you heard them all. But there's, they span things from the eco-friendly laundry strips and dryer balls to gardening and composting, recycling. And I hate to tell you, but some of these things, when you're sitting in the desert, and it's like, this is the Navajo Nation, and as such, we're not Navajos, you see, and we live on a piece of property that basically belongs to Coconino County and not the Navajo Nation. And therefore, there are some things we can't do here. For example, we cannot use their recycling, the place where they take their recycling. So we have to take our recycling an hour and a half away to Flagstaff. And we can't take it to Page because Page won't let us do it. So everything that we do here, there's usually an extra kick to it. It's not just, oh yes, go recycle. We are composting. We figured out a way to reuse the plastic bags. So I mean, there's just, well, it's a list. It's a little ad nauseam. But anyhow, the thing is to continue what we're doing, but to start talking about what else. Currently, I noticed a conversation has come up to lights on, lights off, not just whether we're using lead light bulbs or not. We're moving those in as the others wear out. But what about our use of electricity and that type of thing? And I think it's going to develop. The other thing that I find as a challenge is the fact that this whole process of saving the planet is not merely for us. And those individuals that we saw on the Zoom, it goes farther. It does go to corporate and national levels. And do we have the courage and the time to be able to encourage those people to really begin looking at other ways to produce items? If you took plastic, for example, you can give up plastic all day and all night, but if everything in your store is in plastic, you can't really take the coverings off of them in order to bring them home. Somebody's still got to get rid of the plastic. So that's, you know, there has to be a two-way street on this. And it's going to take quite a bit of work to do it. But there are different corporations who are looking at how to change their output of plastic and that type of thing. So I just think that everybody on all levels must make the change to save the planet.
Definitely.
I agree. Well, I think that's a great place for us to kind of conclude our conversation today. But we know that this conversation should continue in our local communities, within our families, and with our friends and neighbors, that all of what we've heard today really brings us to that place of saying every small thing we do, any neighborhood cleanup, a community garden, maybe putting, we had put a clothesline in our community garden so that people could use the clothesline because they were hanging them on the fences in the street, and that didn't go over very big. But that we can all look in our neighborhoods and see that there might be ways we can engage more people. And I think Sister Catherine, you leave us with a really good point that all of what we do also has to be advocated for at a higher level. That I can make a commitment to recycle plastics and use less plastic, but I also have to advocate for less plastics to be used at a corporate level, at a level that's higher than the place where I'm starting. So that, I think that's a really important point as well. I just want to thank both of you for joining me today. I feel very much like I am in the company of charity with my two sisters here, and just that this challenge is not just some thing you did for 30 days, but it's an encouragement really for us to each pick our own 30 days and begin to adjust our own behaviors so that we can have a better planet, not just for ourselves, but for the future. and that we all can have a sustainable lifestyle, so that whether we're in a desert or a city, we have everything we need because we've done the work that needs to be done.